Hi there, everyone. The British government's persecution of Tommy Robinson will only unleash a populist giant. That's what we'll be talking about on today's video. But first, today is the last day for you to get your copy of my new book, The Return of Christendom, free for a limited time as an ebook download by clicking on the link below. If you want to understand what's really behind this massive shift to the nationalist, populist, and traditionalist right that's going on throughout the West and indeed throughout the world, then this is the book just for you, free as my gift. One thing I ask you, if I may, please click on the link below, fill out a brief 3-minute survey on how we here at Turley Talks can serve you better. That is our ultimate goal in everything that we do here. It's to serve you in the best possible way imaginable. Nothing would mean more to us than you telling us precisely how to do that. So click on the link below, fill out a quick survey on how we can better serve you. And I thank all of you. We've had hundreds of people already filling them out. So, and by all means, download your free ebook as my free gift. All right, the British government has announced it'll be bringing fresh charges against Tommy Robinson in an attempt to send him back to jail, which frankly, they're just the old charges rehashed because the powers that be don't believe he served enough time in jail over the last summer. The Attorney General there, Geoffrey Cox, has decided that it is supposedly in the public's interest to prosecute Tommy over the allegations that he committed contempt of court by filming a Facebook live stream of a number of Muslim defendants entering a law court. If I recall, right, weren't they already convicted? I think they were convicted being part of a child grooming rape gang. I mean, just lovely stuff. And Tommy was bringing incidents like these to the forefront of our news information since the secular, corporatist, globalist media has no interest in doing so. It's so interesting. You know, I was listening to a scholar the other day on YouTube who was pointing out in an interview that when you have either your, either one of your major political parties or your mainstream media just willfully ignoring issues that the populace cares deeply about, then eventually you're going to have what he called political bootleggers, right? This is what we had during the Prohibition here in the United States. The vast majority of the United States population wanted to drink. And if the dominant institutions ignore, reject that want, then the population turns to bootleggers who are more than willing to supply them with their wants and their needs. And I certainly don't mean to be derogatory in any way. I'm a huge supporter of Tommy, but this is in many respects kind of like the role that Tommy is playing in the media. He brings to light the stories that many of us are concerned about, but the mainstream corporatist, globalist, left-wing media intentionally ignores or suppresses in order to maintain their cultural Marxist meta-narrative. All right, so, and this, of course, is what the whole alternative media is doing in general. Tommy is just one of the major representatives, and a wonderful one at that, of alternative media. And so the first hearing in the case against Tommy is scheduled for March 22nd in London. If convicted, he could face upwards of 2 to 3 years in prison. I'm sure you all know that back in May of last year, Tommy was sentenced to 13 months imprisonment for this exact same charge. But that was by judicial fiat. He had no trial, no proceedings. He was basically just thrown into prison through judicial fiat. And then when the story broke, the same judge slapped a gag order on all British journalists and reporters, which of course was a joke. That didn't last long. Tommy spent several months in prison, and he was eventually released in November when a higher court threw the whole case out against him. And now, if this Attorney General has his way, he will be facing even more jail time. I wonder if after he's convicted and sentenced to prison, once he gets out, will the Attorney General press the same charges against him again? Because if not, how would that be any different to what he's doing right now? Now, obviously, I don't think you have to be a genius here. This is a patently obvious case of the globalist state attempting to silence a very powerful and significantly effective voice of populist opposition and dissent. If Tommy were a left-wing activist, okay, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. I mean, right now as we speak, you have blatant anti-Semitism, right? I mean, utterly and completely blatant anti-Semitism running rampant among far-left Labour Party activists, many of whom are actually avowed communists. But that seems to be just fine. No prosecutions needed there. No. What we cannot tolerate is a far-right, hateful, bigoted, Islamophobic rhetoric and threatening actions of this extremist bigot, right? We can actually have a potential prime minister and his radical activist supporters engaging in blatant anti-Semitism, but you can't have a citizen journalist going out there and doing the job the mainstream media like the BBC should be doing if their own devotion to globalist-inspired cultural Marxism didn't blind them to these things. No, that's certainly not in the public interest. So what sense should we make of all this? Well, like I've said before, I'll say it again, gang. This isn't going to work. If the British government thinks it's going to be able to clamp down on the populist uprising with the trial and imprisonment of Tommy Robinson, they are in for a rude awakening. They'll no more be able to quash British populism by jailing Tommy Robinson than they were able to silence the reports of his first imprisonment through that court-imposed joke of a gag order. Okay? The populist genie is out of the bottle, and there's just nothing you can do to put it back. Tommy is just a symptom of a much, much larger phenomenon that is growing by the day. And taking out Tommy is only going to make this worldwide movement stronger. We saw this with his first imprisonment. If you remember, literally days after his imprisonment, there were mass rallies in London, the main one taking place just outside of Downing Street, attracted a crowd estimated to be at least 20,000 attendants, probably more like 40. They set up a stage. They featured a number of speakers to help fire up the crowd. Dutch firebrand Geert Wilders of the Dutch Freedom Party headlined the event, as well as UKIP leader Gerard Batten and Anne Marie Waters. Even the rock singer Morrissey, formerly the Smiths, came out in support of Tommy Robinson. You remember that? Not only that, but there were mass rallies in support of Tommy all over the world. Australia, France, United States, even Israel and Tel Aviv outside the British Embassy. And here in the United States, you had Congressman Paul Gosar, who actively lobbied President Trump to intervene on behalf of Tommy Robinson when he was in prison, which Trump did, by the way, right? I'm sure many of you remember when Sam Brownback, who's the United States Ambassador for International Religious Freedom, he formally complained to the British ambassador in Washington, D.C. about the treatment of Tommy. It was a meeting that took place, I believe, June, July of last year in Washington. And Brownback was reported to have said that if the issue with Tommy wasn't resolved in a fair and equitable manner by British officials, then the United States may actually have to publicly condemn Britain's treatment of him. But ever since he got out of prison, left-wing activists and their willing counterparts in the corporatist globalist media have been doing everything they can to shut Tommy up. In May, he was permanently banned by Twitter, and of course, most recently, he was just banned by Facebook and Instagram, and even Amazon pulled one of his books on Islam off their shelves, as it were. But again, all for naught. I mean, ask yourself some simple questions. Is the nationalist movement around the world weaker or stronger since Tommy's imprisonment? Is he less famous or more famous? Are nationalist populists less determined or more determined than ever to see national sovereignty restored to their respective peoples? I mean, it's not even a contest. Tommy Robinson's persecution simply fans the flames of nationalist populism in Britain and indeed throughout the world. Now, it's of course a horrible ordeal for him and his beautiful young family, and so we need to be praying for them throughout this state-inflicted trauma that singles out right-wing activists. But if there is a bright side to all of this, it's that the movement that Tommy loves and has so dedicated his life to will only grow and expand as a result of this blatant state-sponsored persecution, a growth that will hasten the day when we can together, once and for all, bid this modern globalist tyranny a final farewell. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to download your free copy of my new book, The Return of Christendom, as an ebook download free for one last day. And if you would, please click on that link and take our quick 3-minute survey to help us serve you better. And of course, please click on either our Patreon, subscribes to our PayPal links below, and become a supporter of this channel, and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of conservative trends so that you can personally and professionally flourish. God bless.